Anna's breath caught in her throat as the Mafia boss's merciless eyes found her hiding place. Her father's desperate protection instantly shattered. "This one's mine now," he declared, sealing her fate with 5 devastating words. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. I knew something was wrong the moment my father burst into my bedroom without knocking. His face was ashen, eyes wide with a fear I'd never seen before, not even when my mother was dying. "Anna, hide in the closet, now." His voice was steady but urgent, the kind of calm that comes from trying desperately not to panic. "Papa, please?" That single word carried more weight than any explanation could. In our 17 years together, my father had never begged. Not when the hospital bills piled up, not when we nearly lost our home, not even when my mother took her final breath. I slipped into my bedroom closet without another question, pulling the bifold doors shut as my father frantically straightened my bedspread, erasing any evidence of my presence. Through the slats, I watched him scan the room, his eyes lingering on the university acceptance letters still displayed proudly on my desk. With a muttered curse, he swept them into a drawer and hurried out. Our modest apartment had never felt so silent. I could hear the clock in the hallway ticking, the refrigerator humming, and beneath it all, my own heartbeat pounding in my ear. After 5 minutes of stillness, I began to think that perhaps it was a false alarm, maybe just another debt collector or an overzealous salesman that my proud father didn't want me to see. Then came the knock, 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through our entire home. My father's footsteps moved slowly toward the door. The floorboards in our living room creaked in that familiar pattern, the ones he usually avoided when coming home late from his second job. Today he walked heavily, as if prolonging the inevitable. The door opened. Multiple sets of footsteps entered. M.R. Novak. The voice was deep, accented slightly, Russian maybe, or Eastern European. "It's been too long, Mr. Volkov." My father's voice sounded different, smaller, deferential. "I wasn't expecting you, clearly." A pause. "But debts don't disappear just because you change your phone number and move across town." My stomach tightened. So that's why we'd left our old neighborhood so suddenly last year. Dad had claimed it was to be closer to his new job at the shipping company. Another lie in what was apparently becoming a collection. "I need more time," my father said. "Business has been slow, but I have a payment plan. Your payment plan expired 3 months ago." The stranger's voice hardened. "I've been patient out of respect for our history. Your father was a valuable associate. Please," my father's voice cracked. "Just a few more weeks. I'm not here about money today, Stefan." "Where is she?" The blood in my veins turned to ice. I pressed my eye against the slats of the closet door, willing myself to breathe silently. "Who?" My father's attempt at confusion fell flat. "Your daughter, Anastasia." The way this stranger said my name, like he owned it, like he'd been saying it for years, sent shivers down my spine. "She's not here. She's at school. At 7 p.m. on a Saturday?" A low chuckle. "You were never a good liar, Stefan. My sources tell me she's quite accomplished. Top of her class, accepted to 3 universities. He must be proud." How did he know these things about me? I bit my lip to keep from gasping. "She has nothing to do with this," my father pleaded. "This is between you and me." "On the contrary," the stranger said. "She has everything to do with my visit. I'm calling in your debt, Steph. All of it." Today. Single quotes, heavy footsteps moved through our apartment, doors opening, closets being checked. I pressed myself deeper into the hanging clothes, praying the shadows would swallow me whole. "Please," my father's voice was desperate now. "Take the apartment. Take my car. I'll work for you directly, whatever you want. Just leave Anna out of this." "What I want," the stranger said, his voice growing closer, "is what was promised to me years ago." My bedroom door swung open. I held my breath as footsteps entered my most private space. Through the slats, I could see a large man in an expensive suit examining my room. His back was to me, but I could tell from his posture that he commanded the space. 2 younger men in similar suits flanked the doorway. All 3 had the hard look of people accustomed to violence. The man picked up the framed photograph from my nightstand me at graduation last spring. My father's arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling as if the world was full of nothing but possibility. "She has her mother's eyes," he observed. "Mikhail, I'm begging you." My father appeared in the doorway. "She knows nothing about our arrangement. That was your choice, not mine." The man Mikhail set down the photograph with careful precision. "You've had 18 years to prepare her. Instead, you chose to run and hide, to pretend the past never happened." He turned, surveying the room once more, his gaze sweeping past the closet. For a second, I thought I was safe. Then his eyes snapped back, locking onto the slats where mine peered out. Time froze as we stared at each other. His face was handsome in a severe way, sharp cheekbones, steel gray eyes, a neatly trimmed beard that did nothing to soften the harshness of his expression. He looked to be in his early 40s, though the silver threading through his dark hair might have aged him prematurely. A smile curved his lips, not warm, not kind, the smile of a predator who has finally cornered his prey. "There you are," he said softly. My father lunged forward, positioning himself between Mikhail and the closet. "Don't do this." Mikhail nodded to his men, who immediately restrained my father. One grabbed his arms while the other pressed a hand to his chest, pushing him against the wall. "Let him go." The words burst from my lips before I could stop them. I pushed open the closet doors and stepped out, hands trembling but chin raised. "Who are you? What do you want with us?" Mikhail regarded me with open fascination, as if I were a rare specimen in a display case. "Anastasia Novak. Finally we meet. Anna, go back." My father's warning was cut short when the guard pressed harder against his chest. "I'm Mikhail Volkov." He gave a slight bow that seemed almost mocking in its formality. "Your father and I have known each other a very long time. What do you want?" I repeated, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Just to collect what's mine." His gaze traveled over me with unsettling intensity. "Your father made a deal with me before you were born. In exchange for certain financial considerations, he promised me his firstborn daughter." My head snapped toward my father. What is he talking about? Shame and desperation battled across his face. "Anna, I never thought he'd actually come for you. Your mother was sick. We needed money for treatments. He offered to help, and You sold me?" The words felt impossible, too absurd to be real. "To him? Not sold," Mikhail corrected smoothly. "Promised, as my future wife." The room spun around me. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some terrible mistake or a sick joke. "I was going to tell you," my father said, his voice breaking. "When you were older, then your mother died, and you were so devastated I couldn't bear to what? To tell me that my future wasn't mine to choose?" Hot tears spilled down my cheeks. "That I've been promised to a gangster since before I was born?" Mikhail stepped closer, and it took everything in me not to retreat. "I prefer businessmen, and this arrangement is not as medieval as it sounds. You'll want for nothing. Your education, your comfort, your security, all provided for. Your father's debts? Forgiven. I don't care about his debts." My voice shook with fury. "I'm not property to be traded." "Of course not," he agreed, his tone reasonable, as if we were discussing something as mundane as a dinner reservation. "You're a bright young woman with tremendous potential. I've kept tabs on you for years, Anastasia. Your accomplishments, your dreams, I intend to help you achieve them by forcing me to marry you. I don't even know you. We have time for that." His confidence was terrifying, the absolute certainty that I had no choice in the matter. He turned to my father, who looked broken, defeated. "She comes with me tonight." "You've had your time with her," my father shoved against his captors. "This wasn't the agreement. Not until she's 21. The agreement changed when you tried to disappear." Mikhail's voice hardened. "Consider yourself lucky I'm not collecting additional interest." He stepped toward me, extending his hand. "Come, Anastasia." I backed away until I hit the wall. "I'm not going anywhere with you." His smile didn't waver. "Your loyalty to your father's admirable, but misplaced. Ask him what he used the money for after your mother died. Ask him about the gambling debts, the women." My father's face crumpled. "Anna, don't listen to him." But doubt had already taken root. The unexplained late nights, the calls he took in private, the times he'd come home smelling of perfume I didn't recognize. Mikhail stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I may not be the husband you imagined for yourself, Anastasia, but I promise you this, I will never lie to you." His men released my father, who slumped against the wall. Mikhail extended his hand again. "This one's mine now," he declared, his eyes never leaving mine. "It's time to come home, Anastasia." I stood frozen, the weight of revelation crushing me. My entire life, my plans for college, my dreams of becoming a doctor suddenly seemed like a cruel joke, a fiction I'd been allowed to believe while this stranger waited in the wings to claim me. "I won't go," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "You can't force me." Mikhail's expression remained unchanged, as if my defiance was expected, even entertaining. "I've no intention of forcing you, Anastasia. That would be uncivilized." He glanced at my father. "But perhaps you should understand exactly what's at stake." He nodded to one of his men, who produced a leather folder and handed it to him. Mikhail opened it, removing several documents which he held out to me. "Your father owes me just over $2 million. Here are the signed agreements dating back 18 years and continuing through last spring." With trembling hands, I took the papers. Loan agreements, promissory notes, all bearing my father's signature. The most recent was dated just 3 months ago for $50,000. "That was for your university tuition," Mikhail explained, watching my expression carefully. "Your father came to me when your scholarship fell through." I looked at my father, silently pleading for him to deny it. His eyes, red-rimmed and defeated, confirmed everything. "I didn't want to disappoint you," he whispered. "You worked so hard. So you went back to him? After everything?" I threw the papers on the floor. "How could you?" "Your father has made many poor decisions," Mikhail interjected, "but his love for you has never wavered. Everything, every loan, every broken promise was to give you a better life. Don't pretend you care about him or me." I spat. "If you're going to threaten us, just do it." A flicker of something's surprise perhaps crossed Mikhail's face before his composure returned. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply presenting facts." He stepped closer. "If you choose to walk away, your father will lose everything. This apartment, his remaining assets, his freedom, possibly his life. The men he borrowed from after trying to avoid me are not as ... Patient as I am, you're a monster," I whispered. "I'm a businessman who's tired of waiting for what was promised." His voice remained even, controlled. "The agreement was made when you were still in your mother's womb. Your father received funds for your mother's medical care with the understanding that when you came of age, you would become my wife." I looked at my father, desperately hoping for some denial or explanation that would make this nightmare disappear, but he only stared at the floor, shoulders slumped in defeat. "Why me? Why not just take his money?" his property. Why ruin my life too? I asked, my voice breaking. Mikhail studied me for a moment before answering. Your grandfather worked for my father. He spoke often of Stefan's brilliant daughter, how she had her mother's beauty and her father's mind. I was intrigued. You've been watching me. It wasn't a question. Protecting my investment, he corrected. Ensuring you had everything you needed to thrive. The private tutors your father claimed to have found through the university? Mine. The scholarship that mysteriously appeared after your mother's medical bills depleted your college fund? Also mine. My head spun with this new information. How much of my life had been orchestrated by this man? How long had he been pulling strings from the shadows? I don't know you, I said again, more desperate this time. I can't just leave with you. You know more than you realize. He gestured to my bookshelf. The books on Russian literature that appeared on your birthday last year, I selected them personally. The internship at the research hospital? I arranged it. I've been part of your life for years, Anastasia, just not visibly. A chill ran down my spine as I glanced at the leather-bound collection of Russian classics, my prized possessions. The thought that they had come from him made me want to burn them. Anna, my father finally spoke, his voice raw. I never thought he would actually... I thought I could pay him back before what, Stefan? Mikhail cut in. Before she fell in love with someone else? Before she built a life that didn't include our arrangement? My father flinched as if struck. She deserves to choose her own path. That option disappeared with your latest loan. Mikhail's voice hardened. You've had 18 years to resolve this. Instead, you've only deepened your obligation. He turned back to me. I'm not the villain your father's painted me as. My businesses are legitimate. My interests is diverse. The lifestyle I offer would allow you to complete your medical degree at any university in the world. In exchange for what? Being your prisoner? My wife, he corrected, with all the respect and privilege that entails. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably, and I realized how bizarre this scene must appear. A mafia boss proposing marriage to a terrified teenager while her father watched helplessly. But there was nothing humorous about the cold determination in Mikhail's eyes. I won't do it. I backed away. I'd rather work 3 jobs and live in a shelter than be sold like cattle. A flash of genuine anger crossed Mikhail's face, the first crack in his composed facade. You are nothing like cattle, Anastasia. You are exceptional. Your intelligence, your determination. Do you think I would have waited 18 years for someone ordinary? His compliment, wrapped in possessiveness, made me feel physically ill. If you truly admired those qualities, you wouldn't try to strip away my freedom. His expression softened slightly. I'm offering you a different kind of freedom. Financial security, access to opportunities your father could never provide, the chance to practice medicine without the burden of student loans, at the cost of my soul. So dramatic. He almost smiled. You don't even know me yet. I know enough. I glanced at my father, who looked broken, diminished. What happens to him? That depends on you. Mikhail's gaze was steady. Come with me willingly and his debts are forgiven. Refuse and I'll be forced to collect through other means. You'd kill him? My voice shook. I rarely need to resort to such extremes, but there are many forms of destruction. Financial ruin, prison, accidents that leave lasting damage. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing business strategies rather than threats. I looked at my father, this man who had raised me alone after my mother died, who had worked double shifts to keep food on our table, who had sat through every school play and award ceremony beaming with pride. Yes, he had lied. Yes, he had made a terrible, unforgivable choice before I was even born, but he was still my father. If I go with you, I said slowly, what guarantee do I have that you'll loan? Anastasia, don't, my father began. I'll sign a contract, Mikhail offered. My word in writing, that Stefan Novak's debts are forgiven, and his safety guaranteed for the remainder of his life. Written by your lawyers, I assume? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You can have your own legal representation review it. And what exactly would this arrangement entail? I forced myself to meet his gaze. What would you expect initially? Your presence at my home in Moscow, your continued education at the university of your choice, in time marriage, eventually children. The clinical way he laid out my future made my skin crawl, and if I refused to participate in any of these stages, expression hardened. I've waited 18 years, Anastasia. I can be patient with many things, but not outright defiance. The threat lingered in the air between us. I looked around my small bedroom at the faded posters, the worn bookshelf, the desk where I'd studied for countless exams, and written applications for a future that now seemed impossible. How long do I have to decide? You misunderstand. Mikhail checked his watch. You're coming with me tonight. The only decision is whether you do so willingly with your father's safety assured, or whether you force my hand. My father pushed away from the wall, desperation in every line of his body. Please, Mikhail, give her time to process this. A week, a few days even. Your time ran out when you tried to disappear with her. Mikhail's voice was ice. The car's waiting. My father's apartment suddenly felt like a cage with the walls closing in around me. Mikhail Volkov stood between me and any possibility of escape, his presence dominating the small bedroom that had been my sanctuary for the past year. Anna. No, my father pleaded, his voice breaking. Don't do this. Not for me. I looked at him, really looked. The lines on his face had deepened since my mother died, his hair graying at the temples. He'd aged a decade in just a few years, carrying burdens I hadn't known existed. Despite the anger and betrayal churning inside me, I couldn't bear the thought of him suffering anymore. Let me pack some things, I said to Mikhail, my decision made. Relief flickered across his face, quickly replaced by his usual composed expression. Of course, one of my men will assist you. I don't need It wasn't a suggestion. He nodded to the younger of his two guards, who stepped forward. Ivan will ensure you only take what's necessary. My father lunged forward. You said you wouldn't force her. The other guard intercepted him, shoving him back against the wall with enough force to knock the breath from his lungs. My father was no small man. He'd worked construction before my mother's illness, but against Mikhail's trained security, he looked frail and old. Stop. I moved between them. I'm going willingly. Please don't hurt him. Mikhail raised his hand and his guard immediately stepped back. You see, Stefan, your daughter has more sense than you ever did. He turned to me. 10 minutes, Anastasia. Essential items only. I moved mechanically, pulling my school backpack from the closet and emptying the textbooks onto my bed. What did one pack when being taken by a Russian mob boss? Clothes seemed trivial, but I grabbed underwear, jeans, a few tops. My hands lingered on the worn sweatshirt my father had given me last Christmas. The soft blue one that smelled like home. Take it, Mikhail said quietly from the doorway. I hadn't realized he was watching me. His eyes, observant and calculating, missed nothing. The weather in Moscow is colder than you're accustomed to, he added, as if this were a normal conversation, as if he weren't uprooting my entire existence. I stuffed the sweatshirt into my bag along with my phone charger, my mother's small jewelry box, and the dog-eared copy of Anna Karenina that had been my mother's favorite. When my hand reached for the framed photo of my parents and me at the beach, taken when I was 7, before my mother got sick, Mikhail stepped closer. Leave it, he said, his tone softer than before. I have better ones. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean, better ones? Your high school graduation? Your 16th birthday? The research award you received last spring? He smiled slightly at my shocked expression. Did you think I wouldn't document important moments in my future wife's life? The thought of him watching me, collecting photographs like some kind of twisted scrapbook, made bile rise in my throat. How many other moments had he witnessed from the shadows? How long had he been waiting to claim his prize? Almost done? Ivan prompted from his post by the door. I grabbed my hairbrush, toothbrush, and the small bottle of perfume my mother had given me before she died. Yes, I whispered, zipping the backpack with trembling fingers. When I emerged from the bedroom, my father was sitting on our worn sofa, his head in his hands. He looked up as I approached, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Anna, please, he begged. Don't do this. I knelt before him, taking his weathered hands in mine. It's going to be okay, Papa. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. I'll find a way to fix this, he promised. I'll get the money. You've tried for 18 years, I said gently. It's time to let me handle this. Mikhail cleared his throat. The contract, as promised. He handed me a document folder. Your father's debts, forgiven. His safety, guaranteed. As long as he makes no attempt to interfere with our arrangement. I opened the folder, skimming the legal language. It seemed comprehensive. All loans absolved, all interest forgiven, and a monthly stipend that would ensure my father never had to work again. How do I know you'll honor this? I asked. My signature, witnessed and notarized. Mikhail pointed to the final page. In my world, Anastasia, a man's word is his bond. Breaking it would damage my reputation in ways that would be problematic for business. I handed the contract to my father. Read it. Make sure it's what he promised. As my father reviewed the document, Mikhail's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowning slightly. We need to leave. Now. I haven't finished reading, my father protested. It's exactly as we discussed. Mikhail's patience was clearly wearing thin. Sign or the offer expires. My father looked at me, a lifetime of regret in his eyes. Anna, I can't let you sign it, Papa, I interrupted. Please, for me. With a shaking hand, he scrawled his signature on the line. Mikhail immediately took the contract, handed it to one of his men, and gestured toward the door. After you, Anastasia, I moved to hug my father one last time, but Mikhail's hand closed around my upper arm. Not painfully, but with unmistakable authority. It's better this way, he said quietly. Clean breaks heal faster. My father surged to his feet. Let me say goodbye to my daughter. Mikhail's guards moved with practiced efficiency, one restraining my father while the other positioned himself between us. I could see my father struggle, the desperation in his eyes as he realized this might be the last time he ever saw me. You promised not to hurt him, I cried, trying to pull away from Mikhail's grip. And I won't. His voice remained calm, reasonable. But prolonging this serves no purpose except to make it more painful for both of you. He nodded to his men and guided me firmly toward the door. As we stepped into the hallway, I twisted to look back one last time. I love you, Papa, I called, my voice breaking. Anna! My father's anguished cry followed us as Mikhail's guard closed the door with finality. The elevator ride to the lobby was silent. Surreal. I stood surrounded by Mikhail and his men, feeling like a prisoner despite the absence of visible restraints. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited, its engine running. A third guard opened the rear door as we approached. Your new life begins now, Mikhail said, his hand still firm on my arm. I understand this transition is difficult, but in time you'll see the advantages. I said nothing as he guided me into the vehicle. The leather seats were soft, the interior spacious and luxurious, worlds away from my father's aging sedan, with its cracked upholstery and temperamental air conditioning. Mikhail slid in beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. His guards took positions in front and behind our vehicle. Where are we going? I finally asked as we pulled away from the curb. My estate outside the city. We'll stay there tonight, then fly to Moscow tomorrow. Moscow? Despite everything he'd said, the reality of being taken to another country hadn't fully registered until that moment. I don't have a passport. Mikhail smiled slightly. Yes, you do. He reached into his jacket and produced a small blue book. Everything has been arranged. I took the passport with numb fingers, opening it to find my photo staring back at me. Not a recent photo, this one was from last year's school ID. The sight of my own face in a document I'd never applied for sent a fresh wave of horror through me. How did you get this? I have connections in many government offices. He said it casually, as if forging federal documents was a minor convenience rather than a serious crime. You'll find I've anticipated most contingencies. As we drove through the darkening city, I watched familiar landmarks slip away. The corner market where I'd bought groceries with my father, the park where I'd studied for finals last spring, the hospital where my mother had died. Each passing block took me further from everything I'd known. Your father loves you very much, Mikhail said suddenly, enough to make considerable sacrifices. I turned to him, anger flaring. Is that supposed to comfort me? It's an observation, perhaps a reminder that love makes us vulnerable. Your father's love for your mother and for you gave me leverage I might not otherwise have had. His candor was chilling. And what about you? Do you love anything, Mr. Volkov? He considered this for a moment, his gray eyes studying me with that same analytical intensity. I value certain things: loyalty, intelligence, beauty. His gaze lingered on my face. I've waited a very long time for you, Anastasia. That requires its own kind of devotion. Obsession isn't devotion. Perhaps not. He leaned back, seemingly unbothered by my assessment, but it has brought us here nonetheless. The SUV rolled through ornate iron gates that opened automatically as we approached. Beyond them stretched a winding driveway bordered by perfectly manicured hedges and illuminated by tasteful landscape lighting. In the darkness, I could make out the silhouettes of what appeared to be security personnel positioned at strategic intervals across the ground. Welcome to my American residence, Mikhail said as an enormous house came into view. Residence was an understatement. The structure before us was a mansion, 3 stories of modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows glowing softly from within. Water features flanked the circular driveway, their gentle splashing creating an atmosphere of serenity that felt wildly at odds with the circumstances of my arrival. The SUV came to a smooth stop at the front entrance where a middle-aged woman in a conservative black dress waited on the steps. Her posture was rigid, her expression unreadable as Mikhail's driver opened the car door. This is Mars, Petrova, Mikhail explained as I reluctantly exited the vehicle. She manages the household staff and will see to your needs during our stay. The woman offered a small nod, but no smile. Everything has been prepared according to your instructions, Mr. Volkov. Excellent. He placed his hand on the small of my back, guiding me forward. Show Anastasia to her room. She's had a trying evening. I pulled away from his touch. Don't pretend you care about my comfort after what you've done. Mrs. Petrova's eyes widened slightly, but Mikhail merely looked amused. Your comfort is actually one of my primary concerns, Anastasia. It would be counterproductive to begin our relationship with unnecessary discomfort. This isn't a relationship, I shot back. It's a hostage situation. His expression hardened. A hostage has no choice. You made yours freely to save my father's life. How's that free? Perhaps this discussion would be better continued after you've rested, Mrs. Petrova interjected, her accented voice firm but not unkind. Mikhail nodded. A wise suggestion. We'll continue in the morning when emotions aren't running quite so high. I wanted to argue to scream that my emotions weren't the problem here, but exhaustion was settling into my bones. The events of the evening had left me drained, and the reality of my situation becoming increasingly difficult to process. Fine, I muttered, clutching my backpack tighter. Mrs. Petrova led me through a vast foyer with soaring ceilings and a chandelier that must have cost more than my father's entire apartment. The interior of Mikhail's residence was a study in tasteful opulence, clearly expensive but not ostentatious. Modern art adorned the walls and the furniture appeared custom designed. Your room is on the 2nd floor, Miss Novak, Mrs. Petrova explained as we ascended a floating staircase. Mr. Volkov had it prepared some time ago. Of course he did, I muttered. Planning to kidnap someone takes preparation, I imagine. Mrs. Petrova's lips thinned. I understand the situation is unconventional. But Mr. Volkov is a man of his word. If he has made promises regarding your father's safety and welfare, it will be kept. You sound like you've had experience with his unconventional situations. She didn't respond, merely continuing down a wide hallway with plush carpeting that muffled our footsteps. She stopped before a set of double doors, produced a small key card, and unlocked them with a soft click. You're sweet, she announced, stepping aside to let me enter first. I hesitated, irrationally afraid that stepping through that doorway would somehow seal my fate more irrevocably than leaving my father's apartment had. It's not a prison cell, Miss Novak, Mrs. Petrova said quietly, though I understand why it might feel that way tonight. With a deep breath, I stepped inside and froze. The room was larger than my father's entire apartment. A sitting area with elegant furniture occupied the space immediately visible from the doorway. Beyond it, a king-sized bed dominated a sleeping area that featured yet more floor-to-ceiling windows currently covered by heavy drapes. 2 doors on opposite walls presumably led to a closet and bathroom. The closet has been stocked with clothing in your size, Mrs. Petrova explained, confirming my suspicion about one of the doors, if anything doesn't fit properly. Alterations can be arranged. I set my backpack down, feeling increasingly disconnected from reality. How long has he been planning this? Mrs. Petrova's expression softened slightly. Volkov is methodical. He leaves little to chance. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm authorized to give. She gestured toward one of the doors. The bathroom is through there. You'll find everything you need. If you're hungry, I can have something sent up. Food was the furthest thing from my mind. No, thank you. Very well. She moved toward the exit. Breakfast is typically served at 7, but given the circumstances, kitchen will accommodate your schedule. Am I allowed to leave this room? I asked bluntly. Ms. Petrova paused. The house and grounds are available to you with certain exceptions. Security personnel are stationed throughout the property. They have been instructed to ensure your safety and comfort, but also to prevent unauthorized departures. So I'm a prisoner. You are a guest with restrictions. She met my gaze directly. Miss Volkov values your safety above all else. My safety or his investment? Mrs. Petrova didn't rise to the bait. Rest well, Miss Novak. Tomorrow will be a long day. After she left, I stood motionless in the center of the luxurious prison, trying to process the surreal turn my life had taken in just a few hours. I moved to the windows and pulled back the heavy drapes, half expecting bars or reinforced glass. Instead, I found a balcony overlooking manicured gardens illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. Below, a guard patrolled the perimeter, his movement casual but purposeful. The bathroom was another shock, all marble and glass, with a sunken tub that could comfortably fit 3 people and a shower with multiple heads. The closet was worse, filled with clothing I would never have been able to afford. Designer labels, shoes in exactly my size, even lingerie still bearing tags from exclusive boutiques. The methodical invasion of privacy made me feel physically ill. I closed the closet door and retreated to the bedroom, clutching my backpack like a lifeline to my real world. Sitting on the edge of the impossibly comfortable bed, I pulled out my phone, surprised to find it had no service. Whether Mikhail was blocking the signal or we were simply in a remote location, the result was the same: isolation. With trembling fingers, I withdrew my mother's jewelry box from my bag. It contained little of monetary value, a pair of pearl earrings, her wedding ring, a silver locket with our photos inside, but its emotional worth was immeasurable. I opened the locket, tracing the tiny images with my fingertip. What do I do, Mama? I whispered to her smiling face. How do I survive this? No answer came, of course. Just the oppressive silence of luxury closing in around me. Sleep was impossible. I showered mechanically, desperate to wash away the events of the day, then changed into the clothes I'd packed rather than touch anything Mikhail had provided. The sweatshirt from my father still smelled like home, and I buried my face in it as tears finally came. I must have dozed eventually because a soft knock startled me awake. Gray morning light filtered through a gap in the curtains, and for one blessed moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then reality crashed back as the knock sounded. Miss Novak? Mrs. Petrova's voice carried through the door. Breakfast will be ready in 30 minutes. Mr. Volkov requests your company. I considered refusing, barricading myself in this gilded cage, but what would that accomplish? If I was going to find a way out of this nightmare, I needed information. I needed to understand Mikhail Volkov and the world he inhabited. I'll be there, I called back, my voice rough from crying. After washing my face and brushing my teeth, I confronted the closet again. My own clothes, jeans, and a t-shirt would be a small act of defiance, but was it worth it? Would petty rebellion help my situation or make it worse? In the end, I compromised, taking jeans from my backpack, but selecting a simple blouse from the closet. The quality of the fabric was unmistakable, but at least the style wasn't overtly expensive looking. When I emerged from the room, a different guard waited in the hallway, younger than the others I'd seen, with watchful eyes that assessed me quickly. Miss Novak, he said with a slight nod. I'm Alexei. Mr. Volkov assigned me as your personal security detail. You mean my jailer? His expression remained neutral. My job is to ensure your safety and comfort while you're with us, and if I tried to leave, then I would be obligated to prevent that. For your own protection. Of course, I muttered. Lead on then. Alexei led me through corridors adorned with artwork. I recognized from my art history textbooks pieces that should have been in museums, not decorating a private home. The scale of Mikhail's wealth became increasingly apparent with each turn. This wasn't just money, this was generational power. The dining room continued the theme of understated luxury, a long table that could seat 20 occupied one end, while a more intimate breakfast setting had been arranged near windows overlooking an Olympic-sized swimming pool and meticulously landscaped grounds. Mikhail stood as I entered, setting aside what appeared to be a financial newspaper. He had changed from last night's suit into more casual attire, dark slacks and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms. The transformation from intimidating crime boss to something almost approachable was jarring. Good morning, Anastasia, he greeted, his accent more pronounced in the informal setting. I trust you slept well? Terribly, I answered honestly. Considering I was kidnapped and separated from my only family, he gestured to the chair across from him. Please join me. Mrs. Petrova has prepared an excellent breakfast. I hesitated before reluctantly taking the offered seat. A server immediately appeared, pouring coffee into a delicate china cup. I prefer tea, I said, a small act of defiance. Without missing a beat, Mikhail nodded to the server, who whisked away the coffee and returned moments later with tea. English breakfast or Russian, he asked. English breakfast, I answered, annoyed that even this tiny rebellion had been anticipated. You slept in your clothes, Mikhail observed, his eyes taking in my rumpled appearance. The closet is fully stocked. I don't want your clothes. They're not mine, he replied mildly. They're yours, custom ordered based on your measurements and preferences. That's even creepier, I muttered, wrapping my hands around the warm teacup. How did you get my measurements? Your school medical records provided basics. The rest came from observation and predictive modeling. At my horrified expression, he added, the fashion industry uses similar techniques for their size forecasting. The fashion industry doesn't kidnap people. Again with that word. Mikhail sighed, spreading jam on a piece of toast with methodical precision. You came willingly to save your father. A noble choice, by the way. Stop pretending this is normal. I set my cup down with enough force to slosh tea onto the pristine tablecloth. You've been stalking me for years, collecting information, buying clothes for a teenager you've never even met. It's not normal. It's pathological. Rather than anger, my outburst seemed to provoke curiosity. Mikhail studied me with those penetrating gray eyes, his head tilted slightly. You're right, he said finally. From your perspective, this situation must seem bizarre and frightening, but from mine, it's the culmination of a long-term investment. I'm not a stock portfolio. No, you're infinitely more valuable. He leaned forward. Your intelligence, your resilience, your capacity for loyalty, these qualities are rare, especially in combination. I recognize them in you from an early age. You make it sound like you're complimenting a prized racehorse, I said bitterly, even as a traitorous part of me responded to the praise. Mikhail actually smiled at this, a genuine expression that softened the harsh planes of his face. A fair criticism. I've spent so many years observing you from a distance that I've perhaps forgotten how to interact person, rather than a subject of interest. The server returned with plates of egg, pastries, and fresh fruit, temporarily halting our uncomfortable conversation. I hadn't thought I could eat, but my body had other ideas. The pastries were flaky and still warm, the fruit perfectly ripe. Despite everything, hunger won out. Tell me about your medical school aspirations, Mikhail said after several minutes of silence broken only by the clink of silverware on china. I looked up, surprised by the mundane question. Why? Because I'm interested in what drives you. Johns Hopkins was your first choice, I believe. Their neurosurgery program is exceptional. The fact that he knew which schools I'd applied to shouldn't have surprised me, but somehow it still did. I wanted to specialize in oncology, actually, because of my mother. Something like understanding flickered in his expression. Cancer is a worthy adversary. Your mother fought bravely, from what I understand. The casual mention of my mother from this stranger felt like a violation. Don't talk about her. You didn't know her. Not personally, no, but I paid for many of her treatments. He set down his fork. The experimental immunotherapy trial at Sloan Kettering, the specialized radiation that gave her an extra, even the hospice care that allowed her to die with dignity at home. My appetite vanished. What are you saying? Your father's initial loan covered her first round of treatments. When those failed, he came back. And again, when those failed, I continued to provide funds because I had made an investment in your family's future in you. Specifically, the room seemed to tilt around me. You're lying. My father said we had insurance, that the hospital had charity program. He lied to protect you from the truth. Your insurance dropped your mother after the first recurrence. The charity programs covered a fraction of the costs. The rest came from me. I pushed my plate away, suddenly nauseated. Why would you spend millions on a stranger's medical care? Because your father promised me his firstborn daughter, and I intended to ensure she was raised by both parents with every advantage I could provide. He reached for his coffee. Unfortunately, your mother's cancer proved more resilient than anticipated. The casual way he discussed my mother's death as if it were simply a disappointing business outcome made my blood boil. You're a monster. I'm a businessman who honors his contracts. Your father made a deal. I fulfilled my end. Now it's time to fulfill his. By forcing me into marriage, by providing you with opportunities most people can only dream of. He leaned back, regarding me steadily. You wish to become a doctor? I can ensure your acceptance to any medical school in the world. You want to cure cancer? I can fund your research without the constraints of grant applications or publishing pressures. Whatever path you choose, I can remove the obstacles, except the obstacle of being your prisoner. You misunderstand your position, Anastasia. You're not my prisoner. You're my protege. My partner, eventually my wife. I stared at him, trying to comprehend the twisted logic that allowed him to view our situation as anything but coercive. I'm 18. You're what, 45? 42, he corrected. And yes, the age difference is significant, but not unprecedented, especially in my circles. Your circles of what? Criminals? Kidnappers? Men who buy teenage bride? For the first time, irritation flashed across his features. My businesses are legitimate. My influence extends into finance, technology, real estate, and international trade. The less conventional aspects of my operations are necessary in a world where traditional rules favor those already in power, so you're a criminal with good PR. He actually laughed, a short, genuine sound that transformed his face. Your directness is refreshing. Most people in my orbit are too afraid to speak so bluntly. I'm not afraid of you, I lied. Yes, you are, but you're brave despite your fear. It's a quality I admire. He folded his napkin precisely. Now let's discuss the practicalities of our situation. We'll be leaving for Moscow tomorrow evening. I haven't agreed to go to Moscow. Your presence here constitutes agreement to our arrangement. His tone hardened slightly. Your father's safety depends on your cooperation, Anastasia. Don't test my patience on this point. The threat, for all its politeness, sent ice through my veins. What happens in Moscow? You'll be settled in my primary residence. Once you've acclimated, you'll begin classes at Moscow State University's medical program. Your Russian will need improvement, but I've arranged tutors. You expect me to just what? Live as your captive while attending medical school? I expect you to honor the agreement that has given you every advantage in life, from your mother's treatments to your education to the very food you've enjoyed this morning. He gestured to my half-eaten breakfast. You've benefited from my investment for 18 years, Anastasia. Now it's time to acknowledge the term. So that's it? I've just become your property because of a deal my father made before I was born. I couldn't keep the bitter edge from my voice. Mikhail set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. Not property. Never that. His expression hardened. I've waited 18 years to bring you into my world, Anastasia. I could have claimed you at any time, but I chose to let you grow up with your father, to have a normal childhood. That was a courtesy, not an obligation. And now the courtesy has expired. Now it's time for the next phase of our arrangement. He checked his watch, a timepiece I recognized from my father's luxury magazines as worth more than a year of our rent. I have business to attend to this morning. Alexei will show you the ground. You may explore freely within the security perimeter. And if I refuse, then you'll spend a very boring day in your room. He stood, smoothing his shirt with practiced efficiency. I recommend the gardens. The spring blooms are particularly impressive this year. Before I could formulate a suitably cutting response, he continued. One more thing, Anastasia. Your phone, the one in your backpack, is useless here. We're on a private network that requires authorization for external connections. Of course he knew about my phone. Of course he'd already taken measures to isolate me further. This is for you. He withdrew a sleek smartphone from his pocket and placed it on the table between us. It has limited external capabilities but will connect to the house network. The contacts include myself, Alexei, Mrs. S. Petrova, and a few other key staff. I made no move to take it. I don't want your gifts. It's not a gift. It's a necessity for your stay here. His tone made it clear this wasn't negotiable. I've scheduled a video call with your father for this evening. If you want to speak with him, you'll need this. My heart lurched at the mention of my father. He's okay? He's fine. My people are ensuring he remains that way. The implicit threat hung in the air between us. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. With that, he departed, leaving me alone with Alexei, who had maintained a discreet distance throughout breakfast. I reluctantly picked up the phone, turning it over in my hands. It was locked, of course, with a fingerprint scanner. Your print has already been programmed, Alexei explained, noticing my hesitation. Miss R. Volkov had it transferred from your school records. The casual invasion of privacy sent another wave of violation through me. Is there anything about me he doesn't know? Alexei's expression remained neutral. Mercif, Volkov is thorough. You mean obsessive? A hint of something, amusement, perhaps, flickered across the guard's stoic features. The gardens really are worth seeing, Miss Novak. If you're ready. I considered refusing out of spite, but the thought of being confined to my room was intolerable. At least outside, I might begin to understand the layout of this place, to look for weaknesses in Mikhail's carefully constructed prison. The estate grounds were as impressive as the house itself. Manicured lawns stretched in every direction, interrupted by formal gardens, a tennis court, and what appeared to be a small orchard. The property was bordered by dense woods that might have seemed inviting if not for the security personnel I glimpsed patrolling their edges. How big is this place? I asked as we followed a stone path through a Japanese-inspired garden complete with a koi pond. 26 acres, Alexei replied. The main house is approximately 15,000 square feet. It's obscene, I muttered. No one needs this much space. Mr. Volkov entertains important business associates here. The size serves a purpose, and what purpose do I serve? I challenged, stopping to face him directly. Why am I really here? There must be easier ways for a billionaire to find a wife. Alexei hesitated, seeming to weigh his words carefully. It's not my place to speculate on Mr. Volkov's personal matters, but you must have an opinion. You've been assigned to guard me. Surely you know something. I know that Mr. Volkov has spoken of you for years. His expression softened slightly. Long before I was assigned to his security detail, what did he say? That you were exceptional, that you would one day join the family business and transform it. I frowned. I'm studying to be a doctor, not a criminal, Mr. Volkov's legitimate enterprises employ numerous medical researchers and healthcare professionals. Alexei resumed walking, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of our conversation. The greenhouse is this way if you're interested. I followed, filing away this small nugget of information. If Mikhail had medical research facilities, perhaps there was a way to align my goals with his, to carve out some measure of autonomy within the confines of this bizarre arrangement. The greenhouse was spectacular, a Victorian-style glass structure filled with rare orchids and tropical plants. A white-haired man in gardener's attire was carefully tending to some flowering vines when we entered. Miss Novak, this is Mr. Chun, our head botanist. Alexa introduced us. He oversees all the gardens and greenhouse specimens. Mr. Chun looked up, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Ah, the young lady Miss Volkov has spoken of. Welcome. I nodded awkwardly, uncomfortable with the reminder that I had been a topic of conversation among Mikhail's staff. Your orchids are beautiful. Thank you. They require great patience in specific conditions to thrive. He gestured to a particularly striking purple and white bloom. This one took 7 years to reach flowering maturity. 7 years, I echoed, wondering if Mikhail viewed me the same way as a rare specimen he had cultivated from afar, waiting for the perfect moment to claim me. Mr. Chun seemed to sense my discomfort. When they are removed from their natural environment, orchids require special care, but given the right attention, they can flourish anywhere. Was he trying to tell me something? His expression revealed nothing beyond gentle interest, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his words carried a deeper meaning. I'll remember that, I said carefully. After the greenhouse, Alexei showed me the pool house, tennis courts, and a small lake stocked with fish. Everywhere we went, security personnel maintained a discreet but obvious presence, a constant reminder that despite the beauty surrounding me, I was still a captive. What's that building? I asked, pointing to a modern structure partially hidden by trees at the far edge of the property. MR Volkov's private office and security center, Alexei replied. It's off limits. Of course it is, I muttered. What about that path? Where does it lead? To a secondary gate. Also restricted, I sighed, frustrated but not surprised. Is there anywhere on this estate I'm actually allowed to go without supervision? The main house, the gardens, the pool area, and the small library in the east wing. Alexei's tone softened slightly. I understand this is difficult, Miss Novak, but fighting against unchangeable circumstances only causes more pain. Is that what they teach you in henchman school? Accept your fate because resistance is futile? Instead of taking offense, Alexei actually smiled, a small, tight expression that nonetheless transformed his severe features. I was a lieutenant in the Russian Special Forces before joining Mr. Volkov's security team. They taught us that understanding the battlefield is the first step to any successful strategy. I studied him with new interest. Are you suggesting I should develop a strategy? I'm suggesting that knowledge is power. His gaze met mine directly, even for those who appear to have none. Before I could pursue this surprising hint of potential alliance, the phone in my pocket buzzed. I pulled it out to find a text message from MV. Time for your Russian lesson. Main library. Now, I have a Russian lesson. I looked up at Alexei in confusion. He nodded. Mr. Volkov mentioned it during this morning's briefing. Your tutor has arrived from the city. I don't want to learn Russian. Nevertheless, you have a lesson scheduled. Alexei gestured toward the house. The library is on the second floor, east wing, and if I refuse... His expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes suggested caution. Mr. Volkov expects compliance with the educational program he's arranged for you. Testing boundaries is natural, but I would advise choosing your battles carefully. The implied warning was clear. Mikhail's patience had limits, and my father's safety depended on my cooperation. This small rebellion wasn't worth the potential consequences. Fine, take me to the library. The library was another exercise in opulence. 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, accessible by a wrought iron spiral staircase. Reading nooks with comfortable chairs were positioned near tall windows that overlooked the gardens. In another context, it would have been a dream space. A severe-looking woman in her 60s waited at a large oak table, textbooks and notebooks arranged with military precision before her. Miss Novak, she said in a heavy Russian accent, I am Professor Orlova. We have much work to do. For the next 3 hours, she drilled me relentlessly on Russian basics, the Cyrillic alphabet, simple greetings, essential vocabulary. Despite my resentment at being forced into the lesson, I found myself responding to her no-nonsense approach. Learning a new language was challenging enough to temporarily distract me from my circumstance. You have an aptitude, Professor Orlova noted as we concluded the session, but your pronunciation needs significant work. Practice the vowel sounds before our next session. Next session? Tomorrow, same time, Mr. Volkov has arranged daily lessons until your departure. After my Russian lesson, I retreated to my room, exhaustion settling into my bones. The emotional whiplash of the past 24 hours had left me drained. I curled up in a window seat overlooking the gardens, clutching my mother's locket as I tried to formulate a plan. The rational part of my brain knew escape was nearly impossible. The estate was too large, too well guarded. Even if I somehow made it past the security perimeter, where would I go? I had no money, no transportation, and no idea where I actually was. And even if I did escape, what would happen to my father? The phone Mikhail had given me sat on the nightstand, a sleek reminder of my captivity. At precisely 7 o'clock, it began to ring, displaying video call on the screen. Heart leapt into my throat as I scrambled to answer. My father's face appeared, drawn and haggard, but mercifully unharmed. Behind him, I recognized the walls of our apartment. Anna. Relief fluttered his features. Are you okay? Have they hurt you? I'm fine, Papa, I assured him, tears springing to my eyes at the sound of his voice. Are you alone? Can you talk freely? His expression tightened. Not exactly. Mr. Volkov's men are... keeping me company. The camera angle widened slightly, revealing a suited guard standing by our apartment door. The message was clear. This conversation was being monitored. I'm so sorry, Anna, my father continued, his voice breaking. I never thought it would come to this. I thought I could protect you. It's not your fault, I lied, unable to bear his obvious anguish despite my lingering anger at his deception. I understand why you did it. No. You don't. You can't. He looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with decades of regret. I made a deal with the devil because I was desperate and foolish, and now you're paying the price. Mr. Novak, the guard's voice came from off-screen, a clear warning. My father ignored him. Listen to me, Anna. Whatever happens, remember who you are. Remember your mother. She would be so proud of. The call abruptly ended. I stared at the blank screen in shock, then immediately tried to call back. A message appeared. Call access restricted. I threw the phone across the room in frustration, watching with grim satisfaction as it bounced off a plush armchair. Even that small act of defiance felt hollow. A soft knock at my door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Go away, I called, in no mood for Mrs. Petrova's efficient management or Alexei's veiled hints. The door opened anyway, revealing Mikhail. He'd changed again, now wearing an immaculately tailored charcoal suit that emphasized his imposing frame. The transformation from casual breakfast companion back to intimidating crime boss was complete. That was unnecessary, he said, his voice carefully controlled as he entered my room. Ending your call with your father. I stood, anger replacing fear. Then why did you do it? To remind me that you control everything, that I can't even have a private conversation with my own father? The call was ended because your father was veering into dangerous territory. Mikhail closed the door behind him. Encouraging resistance would only make your situation more difficult. My situation? I laughed bitterly. You mean my imprisonment? Your transition, he corrected, moving further into the room. And yes, there are restrictions. They exist for your protection and to ensure compliance with our agreement. I didn't agree to anything. Your father did, and you chose to honor his commitment. Mikhail picked up the phone I'd thrown, examining it for damage before placing it on a nearby table. I understand your anger, Anastasia, but childish outbursts won't change our circumstances. What will, I challenged. What would it take for you to let me go? He studied me, his expression thoughtful. Is that truly what you want? To return to your previous life? A cramped apartment, financial struggles, limited opportunities? Freedom isn't a luxury, it's a basic right. Freedom is an illusion, countered. We're all constrained by circumstances, financial, social, political. The only difference is that I'm honest about the constraints I'm placing on you. That's a convenient philosophy for someone who imprisons teenagers. For the first time, I saw genuine anger flash in his eyes. I've never imprisoned anyone who didn't deserve it, and I've never harmed a child. What am I then? I gestured to the luxurious prison around us. If not a prisoner, you're an investment coming to maturity. The clinical way he described me made my skin crawl, one I've nurtured from afar for 18 years. Why me? There must be thousands of women who would willingly marry you for your money. Why go through all this trouble for someone who clearly doesn't want to be here? Mikhail moved to the window, looking out at the darkening gardens. For a moment he was silent, his profile sharp against the twilight sky. My father built our family's empire from nothing, he finally said. He came to America with $10 in his pocket and a talent for seeing opportunities others missed. By the time I was born, he was already a wealthy man, but he never forgot his humble beginnings. I remained silent, unsure where this unexpected personal history was leading. He taught me that true power isn't found in money or connections, Mikhail continued. It's found in vision, the ability to see potential where others see nothing. He turned to face me. When your grandfather worked for my father, he spoke often of his brilliant son and beautiful daughter-in-law, how their child would someday bridge our families. So this is what some twisted family alliance? It's a strategic partnership. Your father has intellect but lacks discipline. Your mother had beauty and grace, but was ultimately fragile. You, Anastasia, have inherited the best qualities of both, tempered by adversity into something truly exceptional. The clinical assessment of my parents of me made my blood boil. You talk about people like their race horses to be bred for desirable traits. Crudely put, but not entirely inaccurate. He stepped closer. The Volkov bloodline has maintained its prominence for centuries through careful selection of marriage partners. This isn't the Middle Ages. You can't just arrange marriages and expect people to comply, and yet here you are. His tone was maddeningly reasonable. Complying, I turned away, unable to bear his penetrating gaze. Because you've given me no choice. There are always choices, Anastasia. Some are simply more difficult than others. He moved behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like a physical weight. You could have refused. Your father would have suffered, yes, but you would have retained your precious freedom. That's not a choice. That's extortion. It's reality. His voice softened slightly. The world operates on power dynamics that most people prefer to ignore. I'm merely acknowledging them openly. I turned to face him, finding him closer than I expected. And what power do I have in this arrangement? Am I just supposed to be your obedient bride, grateful for the cage you've built for me? Something shifted in his expression, a flash of genuine emotion breaking through his controlled facade. No, I don't want obedience born of fear or gratitude. I want a partner worthy of the empire I've built. Someone who can stand beside me, not behind me. Then you've chosen poorly, I said, meeting his gaze directly, because I will never willingly be that person. Instead of anger, my defiance seemed to please him. A slight smile curved his lips. You underestimate yourself, Anastasia, and you certainly underestimate me. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression immediately hardening into something cold and dangerous. We have a situation. Stay in your room. Alexei will be outside your door. What's happening? Nothing that concerns you. He moved toward the door with purposeful strides. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. The flight to Moscow has been arranged for 7 p.m. I told you I'm not going to Moscow. Mikhail paused at the door, his hand on the handle. Your preferences in this matter are noted, Anastasia, but ultimately irrelevant. With that, he left, the door closing with a quiet but definitive click. I rushed to the window, watching as security personnel moved with heightened urgency across the ground. Floodlights activated along the perimeter, bathing the manicured gardens in harsh white light. Something was happening, something significant enough to disturb Mikhail's carefully maintained composure. My first instinct was to use the distraction to my advantage, but how? The estate was a fortress, and I had no allies. Or did I? Alexei's cryptic words about understanding the battlefield echoed in my mind. Was he offering help, or simply toying with me? I pressed my ear against the door, hearing nothing but silence. Had Alexei already been called away to deal with whatever crisis had emerged? I turned the handle slowly, surprised when it opened without resistance. Mikhail hadn't locked me in. The hallway was empty. No Alexei, no other guards. Whatever was happening must be serious to pull security from my door. I hesitated only briefly before slipping into the corridor, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had no clear plan, just a desperate need to understand what was happening and whether it might present an opportunity for escape. Moving silently in my sock feet, I navigated the labyrinthine halls of Mikhail's mansion, following the distant sound of urgent voices. The grand staircase offered no cover, so I took the service stairs I'd noticed during my earlier tour, descending to the main floor. The voices grew louder, Mikhail's distinctive accent cutting through the others with cold authority. How did he find this location? His tone was controlled fury. This property isn't in my name. It doesn't exist in any public record. Unknown, sir, a voice responded, one I didn't recognize. But he's demanding to see you. And the girl. My blood froze. Someone had come for me? But who? My father was being watched by Mikhail's men. I had no other family, no friends who even knew I was missing yet. I edged closer to what I now recognized as Mikhail's study, keeping to the shadows of an adjacent sitting room. Through the partially open door, I could see Mikhail standing behind a massive desk, surrounded by his security team. Their body language was tense, weapons visible beneath tailored jackets. He claims to have information that would be problematic if released to certain parties, the same voice continued. He's threatening to go to the authorities if you don't meet his demands. Mikhail's expression hardened into something truly frightening. Stefan Novak is in no position to make demands. My heart stuttered. My father? But how had he found me? And how had he escaped Mikhail's men? What exactly does he want? Mikhail asked to see his daughter, to take her home. A bitter laugh escaped Mikhail's lips. After 18 years of living off my money, now he develops a conscience? Bring him in. Let's resolve this. I shrank back into the shadows as 2 guards left the study. Minutes later, they returned with my father between them. The sight of him, disheveled, desperate, but unbroken, sent a surge of emotion through me so powerful I nearly cried out. Stefan Mikhail greeted him with cold civility. This is an unexpected and unwelcome development. My father's eyes darted around the room, searching. Where is she? Where's my daughter? She's safe, comfortable, and preparing for her new life. A life, I might add, that you secured for her through our arrangement. I want to see her. My father's voice cracked. Now, you spoke with her less than an hour ago, Mikhail reminded him. I arranged that call as a courtesy. A monitored call with your thugs watching my every move isn't good enough. My father took a step forward, his hands clenched into fists. I want to see her face to face. Mikhail studied him with clinical detachment. How did you find this place, Stefan? Who helped you? My father's chin lifted. Does it matter? I'm here now, and I'm not leaving without Anna. Actually, it matters a great deal. Mikhail moved around the desk with predatory grace. Someone in my organization has betrayed me. That's a problem that requires immediate correction. I don't care about your problems, my father spat. I care about my daughter. A daughter you sold to me before she was born, Mikhail reminded him coldly. A daughter whose medical care, education, and future I've financed for 18 years. Your sudden attack of paternal concern is touching, but ultimately meaningless. I couldn't bear to watch silently any longer. Before I could reconsider, I stepped into the doorway. I'm right here, Papa. All eyes turned to me. My father's face transformed with relief and fear in equal measure. Mikhail's expression remained unreadable, though something flickered in his eyes' surprise. Perhaps that I'd managed to move through his house undetected. Anna, my father tried to move toward me, but the guards held him firmly in place. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, I assured him, stepping further into the room despite the warning looks from Mikhail's security team. But what are you doing here? How did you find me? That, Mikhail interjected smoothly, is the question of the hour. He nodded to one of his men. Check the perimeter. Make sure Miss Novak didn't bring uninvited guests. The guard disappeared immediately, leaving an uneasy silence in his wake. Let her go, my father pleaded, his voice raw with desperation. Take everything else, my life, if you must, but let Anna go. Papa, don't. Your devotion is admirable, Mikhail interrupted. circling my father like a predator assessing wounded prey, but ultimately misguided. Anastasia isn't a prisoner. She's the fulfillment of a contract you've benefited from for nearly 2 decades. A contract made under duress? My father exploded. When my wife was dying and I was desperate. Desperation doesn't negate legal obligation, Mikhail countered. You took my money. You accepted my help. For 18 years, you've lived on my generosity while systematically attempting to hide Anastasia from me. His voice hardened. And now you have the audacity to break into my home and demand I release her? My father's shoulders slumped, the fight visibly draining from him. Please, she's all I have left. You should have considered that before you used her as collateral. Mikhail turned to me, his expression softening slightly. Anastasia, return to your room. This conversation doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me? I stepped further into the room, anger overriding fear. My entire life is being negotiated like a business deal. And you say it doesn't concern me? Ana, please, my father begged. Don't antagonize him. Listen to your father, Mikhail advised, his tone deceptively gentle. His concern for your safety is one of the few commendable aspects of his character. I moved to my father's side, placing myself between him and Mikhail. If you want me to go to Moscow, if you want me to cooperate with any of this, then you'll let me speak with my father, alone, without your guards or surveillance. Mikhail's eyebrows rose slightly, not in anger, but in what appeared to be genuine surprise at my audacity. You're not in a position to make demands, Anastasia. Neither is he, I countered, gesturing to my father. Yet here we are. If you truly want a partner, not a prisoner, then prove it. Give me this. For a long moment, Mikhail regarded me in silence, his calculating gaze assessing not just my words, but the steel behind them. Finally, he nodded almost imperceptibly. 20 minutes. In the small sitting room off the east wing. No recording devices, no guards inside the room. He turned to my father. But understand this, Stefan. If you attempt to remove Anastasia from this property, if you try to turn these 20 minutes into an escape opportunity, the consequences will be severe. My father nodded, relief washing over his features. Thank you. Don't thank me, Mikhail replied coldly. This concession is for Anastasia's benefit, not yours. 2 guards escorted us to the sitting, cozy space with a fireplace and comfortable seating that might have been charming under different circumstances. They performed a quick sweep of the room, then withdrew, closing the door behind them. The moment we were alone, my father pulled me into a fierce embrace. Anna, my Anna, he murmured, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I never thought he'd actually come for you. I clung to him, inhaling the familiar scent of his aftershave mixed with the coffee he drank religiously every morning. How did you find me? Mikhail's men were watching you. He pulled back, his eyes darting nervously to the door. I don't have much time to explain. When they cut our call, I knew I had to act immediately. One of Volkov's men, younger than the others with a scar above his right eye, he helped me. Helped you? Why would one of Mikhail's own men help you? He said he had a sister your age. My father's voice dropped to a whisper, and that what Volkov was doing wasn't right. He gave me this address and created a distraction so I could slip away. Alexei, I breathed, suddenly understanding the guard's cryptic comments about choosing battles wisely. You know him? He's been assigned as my personal security. I glanced toward the door, lowering my voice further. Papa, what's the plan? We can't just walk out of here. The hope in his eyes dimmed. I don't have one. I had to see you. To tell you that I'll find a way to fix this no matter what it takes. There's nothing to fix, I said gently. The reality of our situation settling over me like a heavy cloak. Mikhail has all the power here. He has money, connections, security, and leverage over both of us. I can go to the police and tell them what? That you sold your unborn daughter to a crime boss 18 years ago? That you've been taking his money ever since? I shook my head. Even if they believed you, even if they could build a case, Mikhail would destroy you long before it reached a courtroom. My father's shoulders slumped as the reality of our situation sank in. There has to be a way out of this, Anna. I can't just let him take you. I took his weathered hands in mine, struck by how much older he looked in just the day since I'd last seen him. Papa, listen to me. We don't have much time. Tell me everything. The whole truth about your arrangement with Mikhail. No more secrets. He sank onto a nearby chair, running his hands through his thinning hair. It started before you were born. Your mother's family had connections to Volkov's father business dealings I never fully understood. When we got married, Mikhail's father offered to help establish us, but I refused. I wanted to make my own way. Then what happened? Your mother got pregnant with you? We were so happy, but there were complications early on. The doctors said she needed specialized care that our insurance wouldn't cover. His voice grew distant with memory. I was desperate. Mikhail's father had died by then, and Mikhail had taken over the family businesses. He approached me at the hospital one night. I could picture it all too clearly. My father, young and terrified, confronted by a younger Mikhail, already powerful and calculating. He offered to pay for everything. The best doctors, experimental treatments, private rooms. In exchange, single quotes, he trailed off, unable to finish. In exchange for me, I completed softly. But why? What does he gain from forcing a teenager into marriage? My father shook his head. It wasn't just marriage he wanted. The arrangement was more specific. You were to become part of the Volkov family in every way, take his name, learn the business, eventually bear his children. He spoke of bloodlines and legacies. A shudder ran through him. At the time, it seemed abstract, a problem for a future so distant it hardly felt real. Your mother was dying, Anna. You might have died too. I would have agreed to anything. And after I was born, After mother stabilized, I tried to buy my way out of the contract, worked 3 jobs, saved everything I could, but it was never enough. And then your mother's cancer returned when you were 7, his eyes filled with tears. More treatments, more specialists, more debt. Each time Mikhail was there, checkbook open, contract in hand, I squeezed his fingers, understanding dawning. He made himself indispensable, made sure we could never escape his influence. My father nodded miserably. After your mother died, I thought maybe he'd forgotten about the arrangement. We moved, changed phone numbers. I started planning for your future college applications, scholarships, anything to keep you as far from his world as possible. But he was watching the whole time. I said, remembering Mikhail's comments about arranging tutors and scholarships. Apparently so. My father looked up, his eyes haunted. Anna, there's something else you need to know. Something about your mother's family. A knock at the door interrupted whatever revelation he was about to share. Mars. Petrova's voice came through clearly. 2 minutes remaining. My father gripped my hands with sudden urgency. Listen to me. Your mother's maiden name wasn't really Petrov, it was Volkova. The room seemed to tilt around me. What? Mikhail's father had a sister. She rejected the family business, changed her name, tried to build a normal life. That was your grandmother. I'm related to him. The thought made my stomach churn. Distantly, your mother was his second cousin. My father spoke rapidly now, aware our time was running out. That's why he wants you specifically. You're the last of the Volkov bloodline outside his direct control. The door opened before I could process this bombshell. Alexei stood in the doorway, his face carefully blank. Time's up. I clung to my father desperately. Papa, remember who you are, he whispered fiercely. You're stronger than you know. Alexei stepped aside as Mikhail entered, flanked by 2 additional guards. His expression was calm, but tension radiated from him in almost palpable waves. Your reunion is over, he announced. Anastasia, please return to your room. We have arrangements to finalize before tomorrow's departure. I remained beside my father, my hand on his shoulder. What's going to happen to him? Mikhail's gaze flicked between us, calculating. That depends on his willingness to honor our agreement moving forward. The agreement is fulfilled, my father said, rising to his feet. You have Anna. Let that be enough. Our arrangement extends beyond merely transferring custody, Mikhail replied coldly. It includes your continued discretion and cooperation. And if I refuse? My father drew himself up, seeming to find a last reserve of courage. If I go to the authorities, the media? Papa, don't, I pleaded, seeing the dangerous glint in Mikhail's eyes. You misunderstand your position, Stefan. Mikhail's voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. You've committed numerous crimes in partnership with my organization. Tax evasion, fraud, money laundering, all documented meticulously over 18 years. My father paled. You never asked questions about where the money came from or how it was processed, Mikhail continued smoothly. That doesn't absolve you of complicity. If you go to the authorities, you'll be implicating yourself in a criminal conspiracy spanning 2 decades. I looked at my father in confusion. Is that true? His silence was answer enough. Another layer of deception, another betrayal. Anna, I did what I had to do, he said finally, for you and your mother. Take Mr. Novak to the guest house, Mikhail instructed his men. Ensure he's comfortable but secure. We'll revisit his situation after Anastasia and I have departed from Moscow. No, I moved to block their path. You promised his safety in the contract I saw yesterday, and he'll remain perfectly safe, Mikhail assured me, as long as he makes no attempt to interfere with our arrangement. His unexpected appearance here today constitutes interference. Please, I said, hating the desperation in my voice. Don't hurt him. Something shifted in Mikhail's expression. A softening around the edges that I wouldn't have believed possible 24 hours ago. I have no desire to hurt your father, Anastasia. Despite his many failings, he raised you well. That deserves some consideration. Then let him go home, please. Impossible. Mikhail's tone made it clear the matter wasn't open for debate. He's proven himself unreliable. Until we're established in Moscow, he remains here where my people can ensure his cooperation. My father squared his shoulders. Anna, don't worry about him. Just remember what I told you. As the guards led him away, I felt something breaking inside me, the last remnant of the life I'd thought was mine. Mikhail watched him go, then turned his attention back to me. I apologize for this disruption. It was not how I intended your transition to proceed. Transition, I echoed hollowly. Is that what you call destroying someone's life? Your life isn't being destroyed, Anastasia. It's being elevated to its proper station. He stepped closer, his imposing presence filling the small sitting room. You belong in the Volkov family, not just by contract, but by blood, so he knew I'd learned the truth. A distant relation doesn't give you ownership rights. In my world, bloodlines matter. Legacies matter. His voice took on an almost reverent quality. The Volkov name has stood for power and resilience for generations. Your mother's branch of the family tried to escape that legacy. I'm simply restoring what was lost, by force, by necessity. He gestured toward the door. We should continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable. The library, perhaps? I remained rooted to the spot. Why the charade? If it's about bloodlines and family legacy, why pretend it's about a debt my father owes? Mikhail studied me with those penetrating gray eyes. Because Stefan responded to financial pressure. Money was the language he understood. His expression hardened. And because your mother's family betrayed mine, they took Volkov resources, Volkov protection, and then vanished into anonymity. Debts come in many forms, Anastasia, so this is revenge? I asked incredulously. Punishing me for some perceived slight from before I was born? Not revenge, reclamation. He moved toward the door. Come, we have much to discuss before tomorrow's departure. I followed Mikhail through the winding corridors of his mansion, my mind racing to process everything I'd learned. Not just a business arrangement, but a blood connection. Not just debt, but legacy. The revelation that I was distantly related to this man who had orchestrated my entire life from the shadows made the situation even more disturbing. The library was dimly lit when we entered, the tall bookshelves casting long shadows across the polished wood floors. Mikhail gestured for me to sit in one of the leather armchairs near the fireplace, but I remained standing, unwilling to concede even that small point of compliance. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, I said. About my mother's family, would it have made a difference? He moved to a sideboard and poured amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. Would knowing you were born a Volkov have made you more amenable to fulfilling your destiny? My destiny, I repeated bitterly. You talk as if my life was predetermined before I even existed. In many ways it was. He offered me one of the glasses, which I refused with a slight shake of my head. Bloodlines carry obligations. Anastasia, responsibilities that transcend individual desires. This isn't the Middle Ages. People choose their own paths, do they? He took a sip of his drink, studying me over the rim of his glass. Or do they simply follow the easiest route available, never realizing they're being guided by invisible hands? Like you've guided me, watching from the shadows, pulling string. Precisely. He set his glass down and moved closer. I've ensured you receive the best education possible. I've cultivated your natural intelligence and resilience. I've shaped you into someone worthy of the Volkov name. You mean you've shaped me into your ideal wife, I countered, unable to keep the disgust from my voice. Someone who won't question your authority or challenge your control. Something like amusement flickered across his features. If that was my goal, I've failed spectacularly. You've done nothing but question and challenge since the moment we met. Then why me? Why not find someone who would willingly accept your ... proposition? Because willingness without worth is meaningless. His voice softened slightly. And worth without proper bloodline is insufficient for what I require. Which is what exactly? An heir? The thought made my skin crawl. A successor, he corrected. Someone who can continue building what my father started and what I've expanded. The Volkov Empire needs leadership with vision and strength. I've watched you for 18 years, Anastasia. You possess both in abundance. Despite myself, a traitorous flicker of curiosity stirred within me. What exactly is the Volkov Empire? Beyond the vague references to legitimate businesses and criminal connections, he seemed pleased by the question. Financial institutions, technology firms, real estate developments across 3 continents, medical research facilities working on treatments far beyond what's available to the public. His eyes gleamed with something like pride. Your mother's cancer could have been cured if she'd remained within the family fold. We had experimental treatments even then that weren't available elsewhere. The casual revelation hit me like a physical blow. You let her die? To punish her family for leaving yours? His expression hardened. No, your mother chose her path when she rejected her heritage. The consequences of that choice were hers to bear. She was innocent. I took a step toward him, hands clenched into useless fists. And I'm supposed to believe you care about family when you let your own blood relatives suffer and die? I care about loyalty, he corrected coldly. Your mother's branch of the family betrayed mine. They took Volkov resources, Volkov protection, and then attempted to vanish into anonymity. So this is punishment, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. Taking me isn't about some archaic bloodline preservation. It's revenge against my mother's family. It's reclamation, he insisted again. Bringing back what rightfully belongs to the Volkov legacy. I don't belong to you or your legacy, I said, my voice stronger than I felt, and I never will. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes, the first genuine anger I'd seen break through his controlled facade. You already do, Anastasia. By blood and by contract. The sooner you accept that reality, the easier your transition will be. A knock at the library door interrupted our standoff. Mrs. Petrova entered, her usual composure slightly frayed around the edges. M.R. Volkov, I apologize for the interruption, but there's an urgent matter requiring your attention. Mikhail frowned. Can it wait? I'm afraid not, sir. She lowered her voice, though I could still hear her clearly in the quiet room. There's been a breach at the north perimeter. Security has detained an intruder claiming to be a relative of Miss Novak's. My pulse quickened. A relative? That was impossible. My father was my only living family, or so I'd thought until today's revelation about the Volkov connection. Who? Mikhail demanded. An older gentleman, sir? Says his name is Viktor Petrov. Claims to be Miss Novak's grandfather. The name hit me like a thunderbolt. Petrov, my mother's supposed maiden name. But according to my father, that was a fabrication. Her family name was truly Volkova. Mikhail's expression darkened. Impossible. Viktor Petrov is dead. Has been for decades. Mrs. Petrova's carefully neutral expression slipped slightly. The gentleman has identification, sir. And he's asking specifically for Anastasia. I stepped forward. I want to see him. Out of the question, Mikhail snapped. This is clearly some ploy your father has orchestrated. If he's an imposter, what harm could there be in letting me see him? I challenged, unless you're afraid of what he might tell me. Something dangerous flickered in Mikhail's eyes. Mrs. Petrova, have security bring our guest to the study. I'll deal with this matter personally. Sir, he's quite insistent on seeing Miss Novak. I'm sure he is. Mikhail's voice was ice. Bring him to the study. Anastasia, return to your room. Alexei will escort you. No. I stood my ground, chin raised in defiance. If this man is claiming to be my grandfather, I have a right to meet him. You have no rights here except those I grant. The veneer of civility was cracking, revealing the ruthless man beneath. This is a security matter, not a family reunion. You can't keep me from my own family, I insisted, desperation giving me courage I didn't know I possessed. Mikhail stepped closer, his imposing presence designed to intimidate. I can and I will. This isn't a negotiation, Anastasia. A commotion from the hallway interrupted us, raised voices, heavy footsteps. Then the library door burst open, revealing an elderly man flanked by two of Mikhail's security guards. Despite his age, he must have been in his 70s. He stood tall, his silver hair swept back from a face that carried unmistakable echoes of my mother's features. Anna, he exclaimed, his accent thicker than Mikhail's. My God, you look just like her. Single quotes. Mikhail positioned himself between us, his broad shoulders blocking my view. Victor, so the rumors of your death were greatly exaggerated. Not exaggerated, fabricated. By you. The old man's voice carried surprising strength. I've been searching for my granddaughter for years. Your granddaughter? Mikhail's tone was dangerous. You forfeited any claim to family when you betrayed the Volkov name. I tried to move around Mikhail, desperate to see this man who might be my only chance at understanding my mother's past, but his arm shot out, blocking my path. Let me pass, I demanded. I want to speak with him. This man is a liar and a traitor, Mikhail said coldly. He abandoned his responsibilities to our family decades ago. I abandoned nothing, the old man shouted. You Volkovs drove us away with your criminality, your ruthlessness. I took my daughter and ran to give her a chance at a normal life. My father appeared in the doorway behind the old man, somehow having broken free from his captivity. His eyes found mine, desperate and determined. Anna, we have to leave. Now. No one is leaving, Mikhail declared, nodding to his men who immediately moved to restrain my father and the man claiming to be my grandfather. This one's mine now. As security closed in around us, I caught a glimpse of my alleged grandfather's face, the same determined expression I saw in the mirror when I refused to back down from a challenge. In that moment, I knew with bone-deep certainty that he was telling the truth. You can't own people, Mikhail, I said, standing my ground as chaos erupted around us. Not even with contracts. Not even with blood ties. His eyes locked with mine, cold and unyielding. Watch me.